A woman, his unconscious enters a state he can no longer consciously control. He begins to emit subtle but unmistakable signs, instinctive responses that cannot be faked because they arise from the depths of his inner world. The tragedy? Over 90% of women misread these signs entirely. Many confuse genuine emotional investment with fleeting flirtation. Or worse, overlook the man who is truly in love, simply because they do not know how to decipher the silent language of the masculine heart. Have you ever felt it? That eerie dissonance, that gut instinct telling you something is off when a man claims he cares, but his actions feel hollow. Or perhaps the opposite. He's never spoken his feelings aloud, and yet something in you knows. You sense a connection that defies logic, that speaks in glances and gestures, in silence and presence. That is not your imagination. It is your unconscious picking up signals your conscious mind cannot yet decode. What I'm about to share with you is not a seduction tactic. It's not manipulation. It is far deeper. It's the hidden reality of what happens inside a man when he encounters a woman who stirs not just his physical desire, but awakens a soulful spiritual connection. There is a pattern, a secret language that lives in his eyes, his pauses, his attention, and his protective instincts. And once you learn to read this language, you will never again be fooled by surface charm or misled by hollow words. Here lies the real problem. Most women are searching in all the wrong places. They're waiting for grand gestures, for poetic speeches and public displays, when the truth is written in the smallest acts. Carl Jung discovered that within every man lives an archetype, the lover. A powerful force is buried deep in the unconscious. When awakened, it transforms his behavior in ways that make him unable to even understand himself. He cannot fake it. It is primal, raw, authentic, rooted not in performance, but in the very structure of his inner psyche. What I'm about to reveal may radically shift the way you see the men in your life. It may put words to instincts you've long felt but never fully understood. So pay close attention. Because these signals are subtle, but they are real. A man may try to hide them, he may attempt to rationalize them. But his body, his choices, his presence will always betray the truth of his feelings. The difference between a man who is simply attracted to you and one who is emotionally invested is vast. One disappears at the first sign of difficulty, the other becomes even more present. One keeps you cycling in confusion and anxiety, the other brings stability and peace. One sees you only in the moment, the other sees you in his future. These differences aren't theoretical. They manifest in very specific behaviors that Jung identified through his lifelong study of the human psyche. Today, I'm going to walk you through these exact behaviors. 8 undeniable signs that a man's unconscious is revealing his love for you. They're not the topics of everyday relationship advice. This is deep knowledge, rare insight, into the hidden architecture of the male mind that few ever gain access to. Are you ready for a revelation that may completely transform your romantic life? Before we begin, I ask one simple thing. Comment on the word perception below. Why? Because this is not just interaction, it's preparation. When you write that word, you are signaling to your unconscious that you are ready to receive what comes next. It primes your mind to absorb truth, not just information. That one word becomes the key that unlocks the door to deeper understanding. Because what you're about to learn is not just theory, it's a psychological awakening. It is the invisible language Carl Jung spent his life studying, the way a man's unconscious reveals what his words cannot. If you've ever wondered whether a man truly loves you, or you've felt something deeper but lacked the clarity to name it, then this article is for you. I'm about to take you inside the unconscious world of a man in love, and once you see it, you will never unsee it. Prepare yourself, because what comes next may forever change the way you see men, relationships, and the truth behind the quiet behaviors that reveal everything. Have you ever stopped to wonder why some women seem to naturally draw deep commitment from men, while others find themselves trapped in endless cycles of surface-level relationships? The answer lies far beyond physical appearance, clever words, or conscious behavior. It lives in a deeper dimension, one most people never learn to access: the ability to recognize and respond to the unconscious signals a man emits when he's truly emotionally engaged. Carl Jung, after decades of exploring the human psyche, uncovered that a man's behavior is governed not only by logic or will, but by invisible forces that lie far beneath the surface of his awareness. These forces take form as archetypes, primordial images imprinted into our collective unconscious, inherited from humanity's ancestral past. Among the most powerful of these, in the male psyche, is the lover archetype. When this ancient archetype is awakened in a man's unconscious, something extraordinary begins to unfold. He is no longer merely interested or attracted. He becomes emotionally tethered in a way that defies logic. It's as if something ancient within him stirs, a primal force that shifts his actions even before he can fully understand what is happening inside himself. But herein lies the paradox. In modern society, men are conditioned from early childhood to suppress their emotions. Don't cry, be strong, never show weakness. These commands are repeated like mantras, erecting a wall between what a man feels and what he allows himself to express. This is why many men, even when they are deeply in love, struggle to articulate their emotions with words. Yet Jung made a vital discovery: the body never lies. While the conscious mind may censor and edit speech, the unconscious communicates through physical gestures, energy, and behavior, forms of expression that are nearly impossible to fake. And this is where the truth hides, in the silent language of the body, the subtle shifts in presence, the decisions made without fanfare. But very few women have been taught how to read this language. Think of a man you know whose behavior confuses you. Maybe he tells you he cares but disappears for days. Or perhaps he never verbalizes his affection, yet always shows up when you need him. Which one is truly emotionally invested? Words can deceive. Actions reveal the truth. There's a psychological and biological reason behind this. Recent neuroscience confirms what Jung long suspected. When a man is truly in love, his brain releases a unique blend of neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, that fundamentally reshape his behavior. These chemicals form patterns that operate beyond his conscious control. For example, dopamine is the neurotransmitter of reward and pleasure. When a man is emotionally invested, his brain begins to associate your presence with dopamine release, creating a near-addictive desire to be close to you. This isn't a rational decision. It's a chemical imprint that draws him to you, even when life pulls him in a dozen other directions. Then there's oxytocin, the bonding hormone. It's released during physical and emotional closeness, and it biologically compels him to protect you, care for you, and remain connected. This is why a man who's genuinely in love often displays protective behavior. It's not manipulation. It's biology responding to deep emotional resonance. So the question becomes, how can you tell the difference between a man who is merely physically attracted and one who is emotionally bonded? How do you distinguish between someone who says what you want to hear and someone who genuinely feels something enduring? Jung offered a key: synchronicity. These are meaningful coincidences that have no logical explanation, yet carry profound emotional weight. When a man is truly aligned with you, synchronicities begin to emerge. He calls just as you were thinking of him. You discover strange overlaps in your personal histories, or your paths cross in oddly fated ways. These are not accidents. They are the unconscious world speaking, revealing a deeper connection. And yet many women miss these signs entirely. They wait for dramatic love declarations, public displays of affection, or grand gestures, while overlooking the quiet moments that reveal everything. The true signs of male commitment often hide in the smallest acts. In the way he remembers a detail you mentioned weeks ago. In the silence he holds when you speak, in the glance that lingers 1 second longer than it should. Picture this. You mention an old book during a casual group conversation. Weeks later, he brings up that exact book. That's not a coincidence. It's evidence that you live in his mental space, that something you said, took root in his memory. Jung would call this psychic presence, when someone occupies our inner world, even when they are not physically near. A major mistake many women make is confusing physical attraction with emotional depth. Physical desire is fast, it's fueled by chemistry and external cues. Emotional connection, on the other hand, is slow, steady, and built layer by layer. It manifests in patterns of consistent behavior, often too subtle to notice at first. A man may feel attraction toward many women, but when he is emotionally involved with one, everything shifts. He no longer sees her as a fleeting source of pleasure. He begins to see her as part of his life, his future, even his identity. This is a sacred transformation, one that touches every area of his existence, even those that seem unrelated to love. Jung believed that within every man lives an unconscious image of his ideal partner, what he called the anima. When a man meets a woman who resonates with this inner feminine image, he feels a mysterious completeness, as if he has found a missing part of his soul. This resonance transcends physical compatibility or shared interests. It is a soul-level recognition, and when it happens, he doesn't need to say a word. In fact, many men feel this connection so deeply that words feel useless, so instead they express through gestures, choices, energy, and presence. Their unconscious takes the lead. So what are the behaviors that reveal this deeper involvement? What are the precise signs that a man's soul is no longer just intrigued, but committed? Jung identified them, and they are astonishingly consistent across time, culture, and background. Because they do not come from the surface, they arise from the collective unconscious. These signals fall into three main categories, which I will reveal to you shortly, and once you recognize them, you will no longer question what a man says, because you will understand what he truly feels. This isn't about short-term attraction. These are the unmistakable behaviors of a man whose heart is already walking toward forever. What's most astonishing is that many men are not even consciously aware of these behaviors. They act, not from logic, but from a force stirring deep within them, something instinctual, ancient, and sacred, awakening only when they encounter the woman who touches the archetype of the lover buried in their unconscious. And that is where this journey becomes truly transformative, because what happens next is not a decision, but a revelation. The moment this archetype is activated, a man begins to behave in ways even he cannot fully explain. Something within him recognizes you, and from that recognition emerges an invisible thread, a pull that is more spiritual than physical, more psychic than rational. Now we arrive at the heart of this truth, the unmistakable signs that a man is genuinely in love. These signs are not rehearsed, nor can they be sustained by someone who lacks real emotional depth. They are spontaneous manifestations from the unconscious, the soul revealing what the ego tries to hide. The first and most potent sign is in his gaze. Jung believed the eyes are the mirror of the soul, and in love they soften, deepen, and seek, not just to see, but to know. When a man is truly emotionally connected, the way he looks at you changes fundamentally. It is no longer just a look of desire, though that too may flicker behind the gaze. It is a look of recognition, as if he's not just observing your physical beauty, but searching for your essence, seeing you as something eternal. Modern science now confirms what Jung intuited. When we feel a deep connection, our pupils dilate involuntarily, a neurological response governed by the autonomic nervous system. It cannot be faked. A man may say anything with his lips, but his eyes will always tell the truth. He holds eye contact longer than usual, memorizing the geography of your face, the cadence of your expressions. Even in a crowded room, his eyes seek you like a compass to its true north. And, more revealing still, are the moments when he watches you without realizing you've noticed. When you catch him observing how you laugh, how you move, how you interact with others. It's not a stare of control, but of wonder, as if you are a living poem he cannot stop rereading. The second unmistakable sign lies in how he manages his time and space. Jung observed that when someone becomes emotionally important to us, we unconsciously reshape our internal world and external routines to make room for them. A man who is truly involved will begin to adjust his life around you, not out of obligation, but from a quiet internal necessity. He reorganizes his calendar, shifts priorities, and finds time, even in a full schedule, not just to be with you, but to be present with you. He doesn't disappear without explanation. He doesn't use busyness as an excuse to avoid intimacy. He shows up consistently. More telling still is the way he positions himself physically. Jung noted that emotional closeness manifests in our body language long before it reaches our words. Watch his posture. In group conversations, his body naturally orients toward you. His feet point in your direction. He finds subtle ways to close the distance, not invasively, but as if pulled by a gravity he doesn't question. Even a casual touch, a brief hand on your arm, a spontaneous hug, reveals something more profound than he may be able to articulate. Neuroscientific research shows that when emotionally bonded individuals touch, their brains release oxytocin at significantly higher levels than between strangers. His pupils dilate, his breathing shifts, he may blush or warm to the touch. These involuntary responses speak a truth that language cannot hold. The third sign, and perhaps the most intimate, resides in selective memory. Jung discovered that the unconscious is always filtering information, keeping only what resonates at the soul's frequency. A man in love will develop an almost photographic memory for the smallest things about you. Not because he tries, but because your words live inside him. He remembers things you forgot you even shared. A childhood story, a dream, a moment you brushed off as unimportant. He notices when you change your hair, wear a new color, or seem a little quieter than usual. These details bypass the rational mind. They're recorded by the psyche because you have become part of his inner world. If he brings up a past conversation, something tender or vulnerable that you once expressed in passing, it's not manipulation, it's evidence. It means you dwell in his thoughts, even in silence. The fourth sign appears in his emotional vulnerability. Jung taught that true connection begins where the mask ends. Most men are taught from boyhood to armor themselves, to hide softness, suppress fear, and avoid emotional exposure. So, when a man begins to open up to share his worries, his unspoken dreams, his hidden fears, he's not just talking, he's revealing a sacred trust. Vulnerability doesn't always arrive as a dramatic confession. Often, it shows up in the small cracks, a quiet admission about his past, a subtle uncertainty about the future, a pause where his voice trembles slightly. In these moments, he is saying, without saying it, I trust you enough to show you who I really am. The fifth sign lies in social integration. Jung observed that we incorporate those we truly value into our identity, and this includes the people in our lives. When a man is emotionally invested, he doesn't hide from you. He introduces you to his friends, speaks your name with warmth to his family, and invites you into his sacred spaces. He doesn't compartmentalize your presence. You are part of his celebrations, his ordinary days, and even his dreams. He doesn't speak of you with hesitation. He speaks with pride, as if having you in his life affirms something essential about who he is. The sixth sign emerges in how he sees the future. Jung knew that our vision of time is shaped by emotional bonds. A man in love will begin to imagine a future where you exist, not because he's forcing it, but because the idea of a future without you becomes unfathomable. He speaks of trips, seasons, or events that extend months or years ahead, and you are always part of the scene. It's not a demand, it's an inclusion. He may mention showing you his hometown, building a life, a shared home, a dream. These are not empty promises. They are soul projections, where his unconscious already sees you beside him. The seventh sign is his instinct to protect, not out of control, but from care. Jung called this the guardian complex. A psychic force that awakens when someone feels profoundly connected to another. This protection is not about jealousy or dominance. It is about presence. He notices when you're not okay, even before you speak it. He offers help, not to gain favor, but because your well-being has become part of his inner compass. When a man feels you are irreplaceable, his unconscious activates a kind of sacred watchfulness, a desire to keep you safe emotionally, mentally, and physically. And the eighth, perhaps the most powerful of all, is consistency. Jung warned that anyone can wear a mask for a while, but only the true self endures. A man who is genuinely in love does not oscillate between hot and cold, appearing and vanishing without cause. He shows up again and again, not for performance but for authenticity. His energy remains steady. His interest is real. His intentions were aligned. Because when love is rooted in the unconscious, it is no longer a performance. It becomes a pattern, an imprint, and a path forward. Now that you've come to recognize the unmistakable signs of a man who is truly in love, rooted in Jung's profound studies of the masculine unconscious, it's time to understand what this means for your own life. This knowledge is not simply theoretical. It carries the power to completely shift how you relate, how you choose, and how you interpret the behaviors of men around you. If there is a man in your life who consistently exhibits these 8 signs, then what you are witnessing is something rare, extraordinarily rare. Many people move through their entire lives without ever experiencing a bond of such depth. What you hold in your hands is not merely a spark of physical attraction or surface-level compatibility. It is a resonance of souls, a communion that Jung would describe as an encounter between unconscious minds, a meeting that defies logic and speaks a language only the inner self can understand. But on the other hand, if you are emotionally involved with someone who does not demonstrate these signs, or only does so inconsistently, may be time to step into radical honesty with yourself. This does not mean you must abruptly end the relationship. Rather, it means you begin to distinguish the essential difference between temporary infatuation and true emotional involvement. Too many women lose years of their lives waiting for a man whose interest is only skin-deep to suddenly awaken to something deeper. But Jung teaches us that real love cannot be forced. It flows naturally when there is true psychological and spiritual compatibility. You may be wondering, but what if he shows some signs, but not all? Jung believed that authentic love is holistic. It doesn't just affect how someone behaves in moments. It reshapes their entire pattern of presence. Still, every soul expresses emotion uniquely. So the question is not whether he checks every box, but whether his actions are consistent over time and authentic in their origin. One genuine gesture carries more truth than 1,000 fabricated displays or well-rehearsed words. Now turn inward. Reflect on your own path. How many times have you silenced your intuition, even when it whispered that something felt off? How many times have you clung to promises never backed by action? The knowledge you've received here gives you a kind of emotional compass, one that can guard you from ever again being misled by hollow words or your own longing for someone to finally show up in the way your heart deserves. The truth Jung unearthed, and which I now offer to you, is that a man who is truly in love does not need to be convinced to stay, to care, to show up. He does so naturally, moved by inner forces stronger than logic and deeper than words. If you find yourself having to beg for attention, create rules, issue ultimatums, or repeatedly question how he feels, that alone reveals the absence of the deep emotional bond you seek. But this truth also carries a sacred responsibility. If you recognize these signs in a man, you must ask yourself, are you meeting him with the same depth? Jung believed that a true relationship is a sacred dance between two souls, willing to be fully seen. If he is showing you his vulnerability, his honesty, and his unwavering presence, but you hold back out of fear or past wounds, you may unconsciously create distance in something meant to be rare and beautiful. Love asks for courage, not perfection, but presence. Not performance, but truth. When two people come together with open hearts and no masks, the relationship becomes a mirror, and through it, both are transformed. There is something profoundly liberating about being able to read these signs with clarity. Never again will you have to wonder whether you're misinterpreting a man's feelings. You'll no longer rely solely on words or promises to feel secure. Instead, you'll begin to cultivate an unshakable inner trust, an intuitive discernment that can clearly separate fleeting attraction from genuine love. This level of awareness dissolves the need for power plays, strategies, or emotional manipulation in relationships. When you can recognize a man who is genuinely invested in you, there is no longer any need to test his feelings, trigger jealousy, or craft tactics to hold his attention. You can finally just be yourself, open, grounded, and whole, knowing that the connection is real and does not require artifice to sustain it. More than anything, this knowledge becomes a shield for your heart. Imagine how many disappointments and emotional wounds could be avoided if women were taught from the beginning how to identify these unconscious signs. Think of the years, the emotional energy, and the hope that is so often poured into relationships that were never meant to grow into something deep or lasting. Jung believed that finding someone with whom we share a genuine psychic resonance is one of the most transformative experiences a human being can have. It is not merely about romance or companionship. It is about personal evolution, spiritual awakening, and the unfolding of your highest potential. When a man shows these 8 unconscious signs, he is not just saying, "I love you." He is offering a sacred path, a journey of mutual transformation and deeper self-acknowledge. This is the invisible current that flows beneath all lasting love, 2 souls meeting at the level of essence and evolving together. We've now reached the closing moment of this revealing journey into the male unconscious, and what truly happens when a man loves a woman. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you recognized any of these 8 signs in someone's behavior toward you, or perhaps felt the painful absence of them in someone who once claimed to love you? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story could be the mirror someone else needs to see their own truth more clearly. If something within this message stirred you, if even a single word mirrored your inner experience, I invite you to let your voice be heard in the comments. Have you encountered that soul whose presence feels like home, or are you still walking the sacred path back to yourself? Your story, however unfinished, may become the lantern in someone else's darkness, the very sign they didn't know they were searching for. And if someone close to you is silently struggling with the illusion that love must hurt, that self-abandonment is the price of connection, or that they are unworthy of peace, share this video with them. Help me reach the ones who need to remember. Real love does not demand that we shrink. True connection does not ask for sacrifice of the soul. And the most vital union we will ever form is the one with our own inner truth. Before you go, I invite you to subscribe and activate the notification bell. Here, in this space, we journey beneath the surface of things, exploring the hidden architecture of the psyche, the whispers of the unconscious, and how every relationship is but a mirror reflecting our personal evolution. If there's a theme, a question, or a wound you would like us to explore in future videos, leave it below. This space breathes because of you. Your voice is not only welcome here, it is essential. Thank you for showing up, not just to this video, but to your inner work, to the sacred labor of remembering who you truly are. And always remember this: when the right person appears, your soul will know, not through fear, but through peace. But until that moment, let your most intimate relationship be the one you cultivate within. That is the foundation, that is the home. And from that wholeness, all things real are born. Until next time, I'll see you on the path.